Previously on Fried Plantain.
It starts before the bell even rings. Two heavyweights stand face to face at the weigh-ins, an emotional, almost confrontational stare down.
I try not to cry. My mom called me on Monday, and she has cancer. She told me she has cancer, but she knows Tiger's in the car. Listen to this. She knows Tiger's in the car, and he had his baseball game. She goes, "Yeah, I found out I have cancer. How did Tiger play?" That's where my family's at, dude. That's just what we do, if that makes sense. So this huge cancer thing, I'm like, oh my God. She goes, "Wait, how did Tiger play?" And that took priority of the conversation.
Brendan Schaub has become one of the most polarizing figures in the modern comedy and podcast world. Mention his name anywhere online and the reaction is almost immediate. Some people see him as a hard-working former athlete who reinvented himself after a brutal career in combat sports. Others see him as a symbol of everything wrong with the Rogan sphere era of comedy. But every now and then a conversation happens that forces people to slow down and look at the human being underneath the memes. The latest episode of the Golden Hour podcast was one of those moments. Instead of the usual jokes, the conversation unexpectedly turned into something much more reflective. Schaub began speaking about fatherhood, discipline, and the strange psychological pressure that comes with trying to succeed in arenas where the margin between greatness and humiliation is almost non-existent.
But what if you want your kid to play an instrument? You're like, okay, pick an instrument. You got to play one. Which one are you interested in? That's what I'm trying to say. Like, where are you on the thing?
Towards that.
Yeah,
I feel like they have to gravitate towards that.
Like if Billy grew up, started really liking music, and then he was like, oh, I told him about what a guitar is, and he's like, those are cool. And then I was like, well, we could, and it became something. Then, but not, I'm not gonna be like, you're gonna what musical instrument are you gonna pick? You win.
But Eric, I do think it's good too. Like there's a fine balance. It's a good fucking question because the fine balance too. Because there's something when they're like 7, 8, 9. Sometimes like, man, I'm gonna go fuck around with my friends. I don't want to play the piano. But if your mom was like, no, dude, you're playing the piano. You know what I'm saying? Like, trust me, it's going to pay off. So I think when they're 7, 8, and 9, yes, sometimes they don't want to do it.
Yeah, of course.
You got to force them to do it.
Sometimes, yes. Yes.
Like Tiger, they're on break Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They've had 5 days off. Tiger's friends aren't playing high-level baseball. So all his friends were playing, and I went over them like, buddy, we got practice. He's like, no, I want to play with my friends. I'm like, come here, let me talk to you. I told you before we signed up, if you want to play travel baseball, we're going to miss baseball we're going to miss birthday parties. You're not going to be chilling with your friends all the time. None of these kids have the skill to play this level. You do. This is the commitment.
But I think
this is what we signed up for.
To understand why that conversation felt so revealing, it helps to step back and look at the road that led him there. Brendan Schaub grew up in Colorado in an environment shaped heavily by athletics. From an early age, he was a big, competitive kid, and sports quickly became the foundation of his identity. He played football and lacrosse in high school before eventually continuing football at the University of Colorado. For someone built like Schaub, the path forward seemed obvious. Big athlete, competitive mindset, chase professional sports. But like thousands of other college players who believe they are destined for the NFL, reality eventually intervened. Schaub went undrafted. He bounced around briefly in arena football before that dream quietly collapsed. For most people, that moment would be the end of the story. For Schaub, it became the first of several reinventions. After football ended, he drifted into combat sports, initially through boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Within months, he won the Colorado Golden Gloves novice heavyweight title and soon found himself training alongside elite fighters. What followed was a rapid rise through mixed martial arts and eventually a place in the UFC heavyweight division. On paper, it was a remarkable achievement. The UFC heavyweight roster is filled with monsters, and Schaub managed to climb into the top 10 rankings during his run. But even during his fighting career, there were hints that the journey was not quite as glamorous as it appeared from the outside. Years later, Joe Rogan would reveal just how brutal those years actually were. On the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan explained that fans only see the knockouts inside the octagon. The real damage often happens in the gym.
Why are you getting punched in the head? What is going on with you?
I'm not getting punched hard.
How hard?
I mean, sometimes there's my buddy Chris from Boston is a giant, and he'll by accident sometimes, you get connected and stuff. But you learn how to kind of keep your hands up.
But you're getting older. You worried about that?
I'm insecure, bro.
But you worried about your brain?
I sure
getting
am.
rattled?
I was a little cloudy. I stopped for a little while.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're getting cloudy from getting hit?
I don't know. I said to Brendan, he has no time for this shit. He gets so mad at me. He just goes, "You're older. What are you doing? Oh, you're getting a little cloudy. Yeah, that's right. That's what happens. So keep that shit up, man." He storms off.
Yeah. Well, he came to the realization, he ducked it.
Yeah, he was, I don't know. He was sparring with fucking Shane Carwin and Nate Marquardt and all those guys and throwing up after his training sessions. And he played football forever. Yeah. I'll be all right.
Yeah. Well,
I'll be all right.
He quit, though, at the right time.
Yes,
he really did.
Yes, he did.
I mean, he's fine.
Yes.
He made it out at the right time.
Yeah, I'm so invested in him, like he's my brother. So whenever he talks about CRT, I'm like CT. I'm like, "No, you're okay. Don't worry about it." He goes, "You a doctor?" I go, "You're fine. I promise. It's not going to happen." I don't like to think about it.
Well, I mean, he's honest. If he wasn't doing good, he'd tell you. This one case, the trainer was like, "I wish him well. I mean, I'm sure he can still beat guys. That's not the problem. The problem is he's showing some obvious signs of deterioration mentally, neurologically, the way he moves, the way he talks."
Schaub spent years sparring with former interim heavyweight champion Shane Carwin, a fighter Rogan described as a physical freak with some of the largest fists ever recorded in the UFC. According to Rogan, Schaub was knocked out or concussed constantly during those training sessions. In some cases, he entered major fights while already dealing with head trauma sustained only days earlier in practice. Rogan recalls seeing Schaub become cloudy after sparring, even throwing up after intense training sessions because of the punishment his brain had taken. For Rogan, watching a friend endure that kind of damage created a sense of urgency that eventually led to one of the most famous moments in MMA podcast history. During a conversation between Rogan, Brian Callen, and Schaub, what started as a casual discussion turned into an intervention.
This is the reality of it. I worry about your commitment to fighting, and I worry about where you stand, not your commitment to training. Not your commitment to training, not your commitment to give it your all. I think you have one foot out the door. I think you're looking. You disagree? Mm-hmm. I think you're looking at where the future is going to take you, and that you can't do this forever. And I think that's a very dangerous place to be in fighting. And I've seen it with a lot of guys. They early in their career, they're invulnerable. They're beasts. They're monsters. They're 100% focused. Fighting becomes their life. It becomes their everything. And then somewhere along the line, they start thinking, "How long can I do this? When's the out time? What's my exit strategy?"
You don't think that's what the educated fighters are thinking?
Yes, that is what the educated fighters are thinking. But that's a part of the issue with fighting. There's people in fighting that do really well in the beginning because they're dumb, and this is what I mean by that. Really intelligent guys have to process a lot of variables. You have to process more variables than a guy who doesn't think about the future. Those reckless, crazy guys that happen to be athletically gifted, they just can put all that shit aside and go out there and perform. And as long as they get the right opponents, and as long as they have the right results, that feeds that invulnerability, and they can do fine. You're a smart dude, and the problem with smart dudes is smart dudes think about variables. You have to think about the future. You also think about brain damage. You think about concussions. You think about how many you've already had, how many you got coming up, how much damage you're taking in training. When does damage start to show up in your life? Like when does it show up? And how much can you mitigate? And how far is it when you're too far? We all know fighters that are fucking gone. I mean, we all do. We've all either we know them from television or we know them from real life. But every time you see Muhammad Ali or you see Joe Frazier or you see Terry Norris, it's not that you don't try hard. It's not that you're not dedicated. It's not that you're not disciplined. It's not that you're not intelligent. There's shit that other people can do that you can't do.
I don't know if I agree with you.
Don't you consider yourself a fairly decent striker, right? You consider yourself a fairly decent striker?
Yeah.
Right? How good do you think, like your punches are in comparison to like an elite high-level kickboxer, like a Joe Schilling?
Rogan bluntly told Schaub he did not believe he could beat the elite heavyweights of the division. He explained that the brain is held in place by delicate connective tissue that behaves almost like cotton candy. Once that tissue tears, it never grows back. Rogan warned that if Schaub continued down that path, there would be no happy ending. It was a brutal conversation. Schaub himself later described it as the worst podcast he had ever done.
Could you land a haymaker on him and take him out? Yeah, it's totally. Yes, you could do it. You're a big guy, man. You hit hard. If you land the right shot at the right time. But if I was objective and I was standing outside looking at it from the outside and I had a bet, I would have to bet on him. This sucks for you. It's hard to hear.
That's probably the worst show I've ever done.
It's hard to hear, but
I don't necessarily, and you know me, you're my boy. I don't agree with everything you're saying either.
Okay.
But Rogan and Callen were convinced that the same traits that made Schaub successful in fighting could be redirected somewhere else. They believed he was funny, articulate, and capable of building a career outside the cage. That intervention ultimately pushed Schaub towards podcasting and stand-up comedy, launching a second chapter that would become just as controversial as the first. The Golden Hour podcast conversation reveals how much that past still shapes Schaub's mentality today. During the episode, he spoke candidly about his parenting philosophy and the way discipline defines his household. For Schaub, staying in shape and competing in sports is not optional. It is simply what his family does.
Stay in shape, play sports.
Yeah.
It's what we do. There's no other way.
Yeah, that's good.
And like Tiger ain't gonna listen. I'm somewhat of a smart dude. I'm not as smart as you guys. I'm as smart as Chin or Brian. It's not the God-given gift I was given. Like I tell Tiger all the time, like, buddy, our family's not going to cure cancer, Bubba. You better fucking dedicate your life. You're a big fucking dude. You're a big fucking dude. You're super athletic. You want to make something for yourself? This is your best way to do it. So commit to it.
Well, I would say that's one way to do it because you did it that way, and it's like, You tell kids what you know. I mean, it's interesting that you're saying your kids like to make people laugh because that's you know what I mean. I just think that it's just a fine line right now. It's like you don't get a manual for being a parent, and you're just trying to I got a piano in the house, and Wolf knows how to walk up to it. He turns it on his own. He knows how to press the button, and he just tinkles on the keys and he does stuff. And I just go, I just encourage it, But I'm like trying to find the fine line between like, hey, do you really like this? Let's do it. As opposed.
But you know what, Eric? Do it, but do it all. You know what I'm saying? Let's go down that. Let's go down. All right, you don't like it? I don't hold his feet. All right, cool. Let's try this. But I'll tell you what's an interesting conversation is Tiger now is realizing like, money, college stuff. So he likes to box. And he's like, Dad, is there like a thing I can do to compete, like boxing? I'm like, buddy, that's not a path we want to go down. We don't want to put an emphasis on boxing or MMA. He's like, why? I'm like, because I did that. I said, for instance, when you watch the Dodgers, the worst player on the team, which there's no bad players on the Dodgers, but the worst player, the guy who's probably not the best on the Dodgers, is making $3-4 million a year. When you watch the UFC, and he goes, well, how much did you make in the UFC? I said, I was ranked top 10 in the world. I fought 3 times a year. I made maybe $200,000 to $300,000. He goes, what? I'm like, yes. And it's year round, buddy. It doesn't stop. So the juice isn't worth the squeeze, pal.
His son Tiger follows strict training routines and dietary standards because Schaub believes discipline is the foundation for any meaningful success, which is many ways true. Just look at Michael Jackson. Just look at many different musicians and actors and people in creative professions. There's always a lot of discipline, always a lot of focus. Yet underneath that philosophy is a deeper anxiety that many listeners may not notice immediately. Schaub repeatedly talks about trying to find the dog in his children, the same hunger that pushed him through brutal football practices and punishing MMA training camps. The difficulty, he admits, is that his children are growing up in a far more comfortable environment than he did. They do not face the same desperation that drives many elite athletes.
So T goes, Dad, I want to dedicate my life. I want to make it to the UFC. Yeah. I can help you get there. I have a good idea how we're going to do this. But we're competing with dudes in Dagestan, in Russia, in China, in Japan, and in America who have nothing, buddy. They have, this is the only way. And then you got to compete against those fucking guys.
Right.
And if they win, they're going to feed their family. You're good. You're never going to make it, buddy. That tenacity, that work ethic they have, you can't compete with that, dude. In fighting, sure as fuck can't.
Interesting.
My biggest thing with T and Basti in sports is how do they get that dog in them? Because I was a dog. Tiger asked me, Dad, would you have beat me at 9? I look at him like, buddy, you're bigger, faster, stronger. I would have ran fucking circles around. He goes, really? I go, yes, dude. I didn't quit, buddy. You'd have to kill me before I lost. I wouldn't leave the field till I finished first.
It's a mentality.
That's the difference between us.
No, but the thing too.
He also lives near a fucking lake.
No, I
know, but there's a certain
totally. That's exactly right.
Schaub even gives his son reality checks after big wins, reminding him that dominating local kids from Calabasas does not reflect the level of competition waiting in the wider world of sports. For Schaub, the lesson is simple. Local success means nothing if it cannot survive national competition. In that sense, he still views life through the lens of the locker room and the fight gym. At the same time, Schaub is surprisingly honest about his own limitations. In the conversation, he refers to himself as a failed football player who only became special in the UFC because the talent pool in mixed martial arts is far smaller than the one found in elite American football.
Most of the fighters, this can come off bad, especially as a UFC fighter. If you went to those fighters, if they had the skill when they were young to play for the Dodgers, to play for the fucking Denver Broncos, they would choose that. They couldn't make those. They're not athletic enough to do that. So they gravitated towards martial arts. The good athletes aren't fucking signing up for jiu-jitsu and fucking karate, but it's all they can really do. Tiger has a skill set where, buddy, we're not doing fucking taekwondo.
Got it.
Are you
I had a football friend of mine. He said he was like, a lot of football players are just failed basketball players. You know,
and to be honest, like the only reason I got into the UFC because I was a failed football player. I was considered a really good athlete in the UFC.
Yeah,
I'm dime a dozen in college football. You walk in any college locker room, there's 30 of me.
Wow,
at least, dude. I'm not special. In the UFC, I'm special because they don't have a lot of good athletes. If that makes sense.
That pressure becomes easier to understand when you listen to a piece of audio that surfaced recently online. A few days ago, leaked recordings allegedly captured private conversations between Schaub and a former associate, Mark Harley. The recordings were not meant for public consumption, but they offer a rare glimpse into how Schaub speaks about his career when the cameras are not rolling. In the audio, Schaub sounds far more defensive and stressed than the confident persona audiences usually see on podcasts. Much of the conversation revolves around the constant balancing act between entertainment, controversy, and business survival. At one point, he recalls a podcast episode featuring actor Frank Grillo and comedian Sam Tripoli, where he has specifically warned his team not to say anything outrageous in the first few minutes in order to avoid YouTube demonetization.
Yeah. So, yeah, I thought that could be like viral, you know, or more viral than some of the other stuff.
For sure.
It's just so
I guess we had to take down the one that I posted. I thought was funny. I think we tried it. Where literally first minute of the pod, I'm like, hey, guy, you know, before we go, I'm like, hey, don't say anything crazy in the first 2 minutes. And then literally right off the bat, Sam's like, I'm in a fucking fat shit. So I was like, really?
You got to take it down? Or?
Well, I didn't want it, but then Brian had to take down to Frank Grillo was like, what the fuck? He's like, that's why like Sam's a liability. So Brian last night's like saying all this stuff. He's like, Sam's a liability. And I was like, hold on, dude. Sam's saying. He's a 90s comic. I knew exactly what I was getting. I love Sam.
Yeah.
I said, the problem is partnering up and having a Hollywood guy. And they're like, obviously, Hollywood guy is super frowned upon. For what we do, that's on brand. Correct. I don't have a problem with that at all. Yeah. I said, so, you know, maybe next time, if Frank does come back down, we don't have Sam there, or it's just not fit for Frank.
Yeah.
Because that's our brand.
Yeah.
Brand's like, it hurts people's feelings. Maybe if it's fat shaming, but him saying he likes fat chicks.
I know.
I was like,
he likes fat chicks. He's not calling anyone fat. I mean, it is funny.
Cross-eyed, like it was funny.
The logic.
And then I just go, okay, well, completely demonetized. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
And Sam was, shit, you told us not to do that.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny. And
the quote was funny too. I was like, told the guys before the show started, hey, don't say anything or you demonetized.
Yeah, that was the funny part to me.
Say less. Yeah. 1 minute in.
According to Schaub, Tripoli ignored the warning almost immediately and began making provocative jokes that risked hurting the show's revenue. The frustration in Schaub's voice suggests someone who is constantly trying to manage the unpredictable chaos of the podcast world while also protecting the financial stability of his growing media network. The recordings also reveal tension within his own circle.
Brian's like, well, we don't want to engage with that. Like, we don't want to promote that because certain people's feeling like, I disagree, man.
Yeah. It's funny how Brian, too, is like almost like 1 foot in, 1 foot out of it. Like, he'll seem like he's okay, but then, like, he'll, like, think about it, you know, and be like, that's not okay at all.
Yeah. He'll be like, we shouldn't highlight it. And he's like, then the other big-time actors won't come on. I'm like, good.
Yeah.
It's not a fit, dude. Like, I kept throwing jokes out all night, and Frank wasn't picking up on it. It was Brian. But Sam, like, I got you, man.
Yeah,
yeah. He was like, a real comic can get that. And I kept going, yeah, this guy. Boy,
yeah.
Of course, I don't expect Frank to.
Callan, according to Schaub, worries that controversial content will scare away high-profile Hollywood guests who might otherwise appear on their shows. Schaub's response in the audio is blunt. If those guests do not fit the tone of the show, he argues, then they do not belong there in the first place. More striking is the resentment Schaub expresses towards figures in the MMA media landscape. In the recording, he criticizes personalities like Brian Campbell and Ariel Helwani.
Somebody tagged Tiger Thick in Brian Campbell's wedding, and they were like, oh, is this wedding sponsored by Tiger Thick? And the Tiger Thick account I put, Brian Campbell's obsessed with Tiger Thick, almost as much as he is with the owner. It was just like winky face. It's like, say I'm wrong, you know? And that's what I get from it is like, dude, you're in your 40s, like making constant reference to a subreddit, like in like veiled ways where it's like, if you don't like the manly thing to do would be like, hey, fuck Brendan Schaub, like, but you're like homeless cats and fucking PF, you're like making all these references to it. It's like, right, and it's just like, bro, you fucking pussy, you know? And it also, like, it clearly makes Luke uncomfortable. Like, every time he's like, like, oh my god, yeah, okay, like,
Luke
that we're
doesn't
doing,
chime in, though,
no, he just like, but it's like he's making it awkward for Luke because
I just wish Luke, like, that
Luke
was
can't. You're right.
I wish Luke would have been like, hey, you know, the only reason we're here is because Schaub, right?
Right.
Like, none of this happens if Schaub didn't give us the pass.
Right.
Like, he literally I literally called Brian and said, you guys really think I got the guy?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, he has a contract, so I called Luke, like, negotiated everything. I was like, what are you making? He told me, I'm like, hey, I have to be more than this. Brian's like, I think we have the budget, let me see. Who else can we get? I'm like, I don't know who Luke wants to work with, but ask him. Yeah, it's Brian, obviously, and I didn't know Brian then. Brian does boxing for CBS, and they had me and Brian do Floyd Mayweather weigh-in together. And it just didn't gel well because he kept making like these dad jokes, and I was like, and that's when the Reddit paid attention because I was like, and I was like, are we done? Yeah. And I was like, you're just gonna keep doing this big thing you're doing? And he's like, I thought you were a comedian. I'm like, I am, not here.
Whether those remarks were emotional exaggerations or genuine frustration, they reveal how deeply Schaub feels attacked by parts of the media ecosystem surrounding combat sports. The audio also touches on one of the most vulnerable moments of Schaub's post-fighting career: the decision to leave the security of Showtime and build his own independent network, Thick Boy. Schaub admits that the move hurt his ego when viewership dropped and he had to rebuild an audience from scratch on YouTube.
No one can come close to what I've built. That's all good. And I was like, man, maybe it's just time to walk away. Like, every show has its course. Like, what are you going to do the next 10 years? There's no way. You can't. So I came in with the will to give up on it. But then talking to Mike and talking to Tom and Rogan, they're saying, I think there's more you can do with it if you want to. And then Tom's like, what about selling it like to Barstool? I was like, because I knew it would take a hit because on Showtime, minimum views is like 275,000 for like a terrible fight. And I was like, somewhere at 1.2 million, 1.6 million. We have, I think, 8 ones over $1 million. He was the biggest show ever they've ever had on there. And he's like, so it's there. And I was like, but he's like, when you do jump to, this is what the YouTube guy said too, he goes, when you jump channels, not everyone's going to follow. So you're going to have to recondition the audience. I was like, I knew it was going to take some hit, because I don't know, fuck every fucking fighter. I'll see there's some new ones here and there. But, so that's where I'm at with it. But I went to the Cursed Blades.
He describes feeling overworked while juggling multiple shows and even briefly considering walking away from podcasting entirely. According to the recording, he ultimately continued only after receiving encouragement from people he trusted, including Joe Rogan. What the leak ultimately reveals is a version of Brendan Schaub that rarely appears in public. Behind the confident delivery and bravado is someone who clearly feels the weight of constant comparison, industry competition, and online criticism. For a man whose life has always revolved around competition, the business world of media and podcasting can feel like another arena where losing is not an option. Unfortunately for Schaub, that mindset has collided head-on with the internet. Over the past several years, he has become one of the most relentlessly mocked figures in online comedy culture. Entire communities have formed around criticizing his stand-up performances, his podcasts, and even the way he speaks. The hostility can be extreme. In many ways, Schaub represents a unique phenomenon in internet culture where a public figure becomes both a performer and a permanent meme.
Brendan Schaub is a comedian, was a UFC fighter. Who started comedy because of his friendship with Joe Rogan.
I'm the only person in my house who doesn't speak Spanish. I feel like a refugee in my own goddamn house.
This community he created on Reddit. What's the Reddit?
The Fire and the Kid.
The Fire and the Kid subreddit.
Yeah, big up the homeless cats.
Yeah, so those cats
we do not
are the
matter.
group of people who comment on Brendan Schaub's going on.
Indeed.
And they're called the homeless cats because he said people who don't like him are homeless.
Yes. Your brain can't work out why somebody so aggressively untalented is super successful. Like, your brain can't work it out because it doesn't happen like that. But I think it's always a really good lesson for life. That's what life is like. Life isn't fair. It's never fair.
From Schaub's perspective, that level of negativity is something the human brain simply was not designed to process. Combat sports taught him how to deal with direct confrontation inside a cage. Social media criticism is different. It never stops. It is anonymous. In the Golden Hour conversation, he hints at how that constant pressure affects him psychologically. Yet the same stubborn ego that once helped him survive in the UFC also pushes him to keep going. Joe Rogan and Brian Callen successfully convinced Schaub to leave fighting before the physical damage became catastrophic. They pulled the cord at exactly the right moment. Rogan has even said that Schaub is one of the rare fighters who escaped the sport while still mentally intact. But while the intervention saved his body, it also pushed him into a new arena where the rules of competition are far less clear.
Then I'm reading the comments. I was like, do your fans like you? You specifically, I'm like, all Brandon does is fucking try to help others and mind his own business.
All Brendan does is mind his own business and try to help others. That can't be. Well, you know what? I'll tell you something. If I caught somebody doing that shit, I'd hate them. Helping others? I have proof. I showed you. I hate charity.
I do think that if people saw the shit you do behind the scenes, they'd be like, oh.
Every fool has tried that one on me. If they knew me in real life, they would never do this. Okay.
In fighting, winning and losing are simple. You either knock someone out or you get knocked out. In comedy and internet culture, the scoreboard is far more ambiguous. Success can be measured in views, ticket sales, or social media engagement. But public perception is constantly shifting, and criticism can follow you indefinitely. For someone raised in environments where performance determines survival, that ambiguity can be psychologically exhausting. The Golden Hour conversation reveals a man still navigating that transition. Brendan Schaub is no longer the underdog athlete fighting for a roster spot or a heavyweight ranking. He's now a father, a podcaster, and a comedian trying to reconcile the warrior mentality that built his career with a world that judges success very differently. His discipline remains rigid. His ego remains strong. His desire to provide for his family remains intense. But the arena he is fighting in today is not the octagon. It is the internet. And unlike combat sports, there's no referee to stop the fight. In that sense, the story of Brendan Schaub is not just about one controversial comedian. It is about the strange psychological aftermath of elite competition. A man who spent years proving himself in brutal physical contests now finds himself battling criticism in a digital coliseum where the blows never quite land the same way. But they never stop coming either.